I get these social links shared out. All right, copy this. Copy link, paste, go, go, go. Okay, now I'll move this back over here. Close that out, and let's talk. Hello, my name is Brian Almon. You can find me at gemstate.substack.com. Find me on Twitter at GemStateBrian. Look to the sides of the screen and you'll see those. Trying something new out here. I also fixed the mirroring issue so you can read my hat up there. I didn't notice that until I was all done last time. So it is another great day in the Treasure Valley of Idaho. It is hot outside, it is sunny, and the Republican Party has been completely overhauled. So it's a good day. I came back pretty tired from the convention, but also feeling pretty fired up. It was a lot of fun. It was really exciting. The most valuable part of it to me was getting out there and meeting other conservative Republicans from across the state. I met a lot of people that I had only interacted with online thus far. Guys like Mr. Riley and Mr. Handeen and Mr. Clark. Didn't get a chance to sit down and talk to Brent Regan from Kootenai, but maybe next time. I got to, meet guys like Mark Fuller from out in Bonneville. Also got to shake hands with some people who I may not agree with on all things, like Speaker Bedke, soon to be Lieutenant Governor Bedke, Senator Winder. I got to sit right next to him during one of our sessions. But no, it's all good. It's fun to actually meet these people. So let's talk about what happened over the weekend. You'll probably be reading about it in the news. Beforehand, they were trying to say that it was going to be some sort of extremist thing. One of the resolutions that had been submitted to the convention was to say that Biden wasn't legitimately elected, and I'll talk about that. No, but what the convention is, it's a gathering of about 750 delegates from all throughout the state. And it's based on population. It's actually based on voting population, not just base population. So there were 141 delegates from Ada County. Some smaller counties only had 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 delegates. And then every legislative district had 3 people, or at least they were supposed to. There were some areas that didn't have as many. One legislative district, District 35, did not send anybody to the convention. And Power County and Teton County did not send anyone to the convention either, which is a shame. Hopefully they can get a collection of people together for next time and have some representation. So the first day of the convention was Thursday, and it was mostly just checking in and saying hello to everybody who was there. I was not on a specific committee on Thursday. But the Rules Committee, Credentials Committee, and Platform Committee did meet that day. In Rules, they came up with, they took a look at the submitted ideas for rule changes for the party. And only one rule made it out of that committee, and that was Brandon Durst's rule to try and cut down on crossover voting from Democrats. See, something that happens here, Idaho is a very red state. It is hard for a Democrat to win in Idaho. It's just as hard for a Democrat to win here as it is for a Republican to win in California. So, people get upset about this, but I keep telling people this is the rational thing to do. If I was a Democrat here in Idaho, I would certainly register as a Republican. Republican, Democrat, these are just organizations. These are just names. So it's not like you're betraying some core principle to switch sides. Wait, you're engaging in strategy, engaging in tactics. So it is entirely rational for Democrats here in Idaho to register as Republican and try and push the party leftward. Now, that said, it is entirely up to us to fight that tooth and nail, because we don't want our party and our state to be pushed leftward. We want to keep it right, push it even further to the right, go back. So it is they're going to do that. They're going to try and push the party in the state left. We need to fight back. And that's what this rule change was about. The idea of this rule change, if it is adopted by the state party at their winter meeting, which it should be, is that you will have to wait after switching parties to vote in the Republican primary. Instead of just going in during the filing period in March and switching your affiliation from Democrat to Republican and then voting in our primary and then immediately switching back, you'll have to wait 2 years. You'll have to wait 25 months before you can vote in a Republican primary if you have been a registered Democrat. And that might seem harsh, but how else are you going to police our own primary elections? Because that's what it is. People get this idea that primary elections are the same as general elections, that they're open to everybody, and that there should be no restrictions. But that's not what a primary is. A primary is a private organization, in this case, the Republican Party or the Democrat Party or the Libertarian Party or whatever, choosing their champion, choosing their nominee to go to the general election, which is a free-for-all. Anybody can run in a general election. And so it is by definition a private event. And so it is entirely proper for the Republican Party to have controls on who gets to participate in that private event. So you see something happening in other states. California and Washington, for example, have open primaries that are completely, there's no controls at all. In Washington, where I used to live, people just file with the government to run in the primary, and they indicate their party preference. Now, that doesn't mean they have to belong to a party. You can go in there and write Republican, even if you're not a Republican. Or if you are a Republican and you're afraid that that word is scary to Washington voters, which it kind of is, you write something else. You write conservative, you write independent, you write, awesome party. I mean, you can say anything. And then after the primary, the top 2 vote getters advance to the general election. So you could have 2 Democrats. In a few of the remaining conservative areas of Washington, you could have 2 Republicans. It really makes a mockery of the entire idea of a primary election. Like I said, the purpose of a primary is for the organization to choose its champion. And so that's why we have a closed primary. My friend Mike Tomlin likes to say it's not a closed primary. It's open to everybody who is a member of the party. It's a party primary. And I think that's good rhetoric there, because that's what it is. It is the party choosing its nominee. And this idea that we should just sit back and let Democrats choose Republican nominees is ridiculous, because they'll either try and choose someone who is a very weak candidate who the Democrat will then defeat in November, or they'll try and choose someone who is as far left as possible so that when they win, they'll have a left-leaning Republican in office. The end result of this is that we'll be a one-party state, but half the Republicans in the legislature will be basically Democrats. They'll be liberals, progressives, and the other half will be conservatives. So they may as well be 2 parties. So I think it's important for the Republican Party to have some control over who gets to be our standard bearer. Yeah, that rule came out of committee, and it was presented to the General Assembly on Friday afternoon. Excuse me. It was a busy week. And it was argued, Mr. Durst argued very well that this should be adopted. And they had actually taken out some of the language in committee. There was additional language in there about allowing county Republican committees to make recommendations. The idea being that these county committees could investigate the candidates and vet them and figure out who they really are. Are they conservatives? Do they hold to the Republican platform? Or are they wolves in sheep's clothing? Are they coming in here because they know that you have to be a Republican to be elected? And so they're taking their progressive ideas and bringing them here and then trying to get elected where they can make a difference. And this had been stripped out in the committee. However, the convention can basically do whatever it wants. And that's one of the fun things about a political convention. Once you're in general session, somebody can make a motion to do almost anything. And as long as enough delegates support it, it will happen. So one of the delegates made a motion to put that language back in the rule. And after some debate back and forth, the amendment passed, and then the rule passed. There was actually some drama. If you read my day 2 report at gemstate.substack.com, you can read about that drama. The initial count was that the amendment passed by 12 votes, but then a member of my own delegation from Ada County made a point of order that the rules require a roll call vote by county and by legislative district. And so we had to do it all over again. And it was a mess because people had left, people had come back. It's a busy time. It's hard to keep track of 750 people. But once that was all done, the amendment passed by even more votes. It actually gained votes. And then the rule itself passed. So that rule will be sent to the executive board and the Republican State Committee for their winter meeting in January. And this and they'll figure out how to implement it. Personally, I think they should split it. I think it should be two different rules. The rule about allowing county committees to endorse candidates, that's one side of it, and the rule about preventing crossover voting, that's the other side. One of them deals with candidates, the other deals with electors, voters. And I think they're two sides of the same coin, but they need to be addressed in different ways. I know a lot of people support the anti-crossover voting rule. However, there are some people who are against the idea of letting county committees recommend candidates. And I can see why. If you're a conservative and you live in an area that has a very moderate county committee, you're worried about them making recommendations. On the other hand, if you have a conservative county committee, then you want them to be able to properly vet candidates and share that information with the voting public, well, with the Republican voting public, saying these are, this is what we've discovered. These people are strong conservatives. They hold to the platform, whereas those people over there are not so strong. They have views that are at odds with our platform. So that rule was done, and we'll see how it goes at the next meeting. Let's see, where was I? Thursday afternoon, I sat in on the credentials committee, and that was interesting. I was not a member of the committee, so I was just an observer. I sat on the floor in the corner and took some notes as the proceedings went on. There were 4 different challenges. So the idea is that, we have these 750 delegates, and we need to make sure that they are duly elected. The idea is you have to submit a form to the party, and you have to be selected by your county or legislative district, and it has to be voted on by the PCs of that county or district. And there were 2 challenges in Canyon County. Now, Canyon County is right next door to us. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Idaho geography, it's the other end of the Treasure Valley, basically. Nampa is the big city in Canyon County. In any case, the more conservative wing of the party took over the Canyon County committee during the spring when new PCs were elected and they had their reorganization meeting. And that seemed to rub some people the wrong way. And so there were 2 challenges to the delegation from Canyon County. And it really seemed like it was sour grapes. People who were upset that things didn't go their way, and so they were going to try and torpedo their entire delegation. They were asking the committee to reject the entire slate of Canyon County delegates. I think there's like 60 of them. That would have, really changed how votes came out, because Canyon County is now, slightly more conservative than it was before. But the Credentials Committee had none of it. Although there were some people who voted in favor of stripping those delegates of their status, and I will keep in mind who those people are for future reference. But the challenges also to Lemhi, Twin Falls County, those also failed. There was a challenge to Bonneville County's delegation, but whomever made the charge didn't show up, so they just dismissed it. And, everybody here is human. We're all volunteers. In some of these places, we're not experts with the exact nature of the rules. So sometimes mistakes are made, and the question the committee has to ask is, were these done in good faith? And they were very liberal in their application of that good faith. They accepted all the delegates, and the convention as a whole accepted their report, which is good. Friday, I had my own committee, the resolutions committee, and we had 32 resolutions to go through in 3 hours. Honestly, I think they should have given us 2 sessions like they did the platform committee, but it was what it was. And so the committee was chaired by Trent Clark. and it was a pleasure to meet him. I've been told he's more of a moderate in the party. However, he ran a very good meeting. He was very fair, and he really gave an education in parliamentary procedure, as he's an expert on those things. And so it was a lot of fun. Before actually debating anything, we went rapid fire and voted on every single resolution. There were actually two that were the same, and so they were consolidated together. So we voted on every single one, and based on the number of votes each one got, that's the order that we went in. Because the way the rules are, if the resolutions committee does not get have time to address something, then it's just dropped. So we ordered them 1 through 31 now and started debating, and it was a lot of fun. We passed some good resolutions, tightening up voter ID requirements, as well as declaring Idaho is a Second Amendment sanctuary state. I believe it already was, but this strengthens that language, expressing the will of the party that our legislators and state government reject or refuse to enforce any unconstitutional gun laws that might come from Washington, D.C. So that was good. We did have the resolution supporting the state of Israel. I was the only person in the committee to argue against that. And it may have made me look like an Iranian terrorist supporter, but I just don't believe it's the role of a state Republican Party to express unequivocal support for any foreign nation, no matter how they are related to America. But that is, it's done. It passed the committee and it passed the convention. So that is the will of the party. That's the way it goes. The one that the news media was talking about beforehand, about rejecting the results of the 2020 election, it did not come up. It was actually going to be next on the list when we ran out of time and we had to go to lunch and then go into general session. So it was not addressed and it was dropped from the packet, which is probably for the best, honestly. I like the idea. I like that Texas took a stand and said that the 2020 election was invalid. However, the way it was written, I don't think was 100% accurate. It had a lot more influence from the Lindell side of things than the actual facts of what happened in 2020. I've written extensively about it. You can go back and find it. Basically, my position is the election did have some irregularities, but at a constitutional level, the law was followed. The states each certified their electoral votes, transmitted them to the Congress. The Congress certified them, and so President Joe Biden was elected president. The problem was with the states. The problem was these states like Pennsylvania that unilaterally changed their election laws. The Constitution says that the legislature is responsible for determining the method in which a presidential election takes place in that state. So if the legislature has determined that you should not have mail-in ballots, and then the Secretary of State or the governor says, well, COVID, so we're going to do it, that is the problem. Had the legislature come in and changed their law and, according to their process, then it would have been unfortunate, but it would have been legal. Instead, they just unilaterally changed the rules in such a way as to benefit one party. And that was where the problem lied. And it was incumbent upon the state legislatures then, after the votes, to reject the vote counts, to say that this was not done properly according to our laws, and either just reject them entirely and not have electoral votes from that state, or to seek some kind of remedy. I'm not sure what they could have done. Had those 4 states that we had problems in, Arizona, Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, had those 4 states just simply rejected their own electoral votes, we would have not had a winner. Neither candidate would have had a majority, and therefore it would have gone to the House of Representatives as per the Constitution. And the House would have voted by state delegation, and Trump probably would have won. But you never know what might have happened. It was a crazy time. But instead, they were too scared. And I said this the morning after the election, when the vote totals had suddenly changed. I said, what they're going to do is the media is going to present this as a done deal. They're going to say that anyone who challenges this is, disputing the election results and trying to overturn the will of the people. And that's what the case was. the media really leaned on these state legislatures, and so they were unable to actually fulfill their duty. So, long story short, I think that our resolution, while maybe its heart was in the right place, it it really missed a lot of the constitutional arguments at play. And so I'm glad it didn't come up because I was, kind of two minds about it. I didn't want to have to argue against it because that would just paint even more of a target on my back. Um, so it is what it is. So that was the resolutions committee. Those resolutions were all transmitted to the general session, and the last resolution we talked about, by the way, was Mark Fuller's resolution demanding that the state chair withdraw the lawsuit against Bonneville County. It tied. Uh, it ended with a 30-30 tie, and then the chair and vice chair of the committee had not voted. And so to break the tie, the vice chair voted in favor of the resolution. However, in Robert's Rules of Order, it says that a chairman has the privilege of not only breaking a tie, but creating a tie. And so now, because it was 31-30 in favor of the resolution, the chair voted against it, creating a new 31-31 tie. Now, a tie meant that the resolution was not passed on to the general session. However, since it had more than 25% in favor of it, it could be presented to the convention with a minority report. And as I said in my piece yesterday, by the time the resolutions were heard, more than 200 people had already left the auditorium, many of them on the more establishment side of the party. And so once this resolution that was so tight that it was an exact tie in the resolutions committee, once it made it to the convention floor, it was overwhelmingly passed. And so the state party has officially sent a resolution to the state chair to dismiss that lawsuit. It's kind of almost a moot point because of the results of the state chair election. However, it also sends a strong statement saying that litigation is not the way to solve our problems. And I, I really do think that was the previous chairman's biggest mistake. I think Tom Luna made a couple of mistakes. Like I said, I think he is a good man. I don't see much ill intent from him. He has been involved in politics for a long time, and that I think that insulates you a bit. I feel like he lost touch with the conservative base. He was not aware of the growing conservative movement within the party. I don't think he was aware of how strong it had gotten over these past 2 years and how frustrated people have been getting. You look at the governor primary results. Brad Little, he's the face of the establishment. He got 52%, and the other candidates split the rest. So you figure, okay, so the establishment is still the majority, right? But the people who have been getting involved in politics over the past 2 years are much more right wing than the average voter, I believe. The people who are going and running for PC and applying to be delegates and coming to the convention, the people who are really motivated to be involved and make a difference, I think are much more conservative. And I don't think the leadership quite realized that. And so after the vote for the rule change about crossover voting on Friday, it passed with over 400 votes, a solid majority. I think the leadership started to realize that things were about to change. And the ovations that came when Brent Regan nominated Dorothy Moon for chair, and then when Moon herself gave her speech, I think the leadership and Tom Luna probably knew how things were going to shake out. So that was a mistake. That was an oversight, and of course, suing a county party. I've heard arguments on both sides about whether it is right and proper for a county party to make endorsements or even just recommendations of candidates in the primary. And that's this huge issue that has been going back and forth ever since I've been involved here. On the one side, if we are going to see people who are more progressive register as Republicans and run as Republicans, even though they have views that are at odds with our platform, then I think it is reasonable for those of us who are involved to share that information with the people. Say, look, we've interviewed these people, we've looked at their past statements, we've looked at their record. They are not holding to Republican values. On the other hand, I get the idea that the party itself as an organization should be neutral in the primary. It shouldn't be putting its thumb on the scale for one candidate or another. If that wasn't the case, then Ada County, at least in the past, I think would be more supportive of establishment candidates. And that's not something that we want. However, the counterpoint to that is that I believe that party officials do put their thumbs on the scale. They just do it in secret. They do it behind the scenes. I mentioned several times in my pieces this last few days about Frank Vandersloot, one of the richest men in Idaho. He's the founder and CEO of Melaleuca, the wellness company. And he and his company donate to both sides. They donate to Republicans and to Democrats. And that's fine. But he very much prefers moderate Republicans and probably moderate Democrats. He wants to keep things a certain way in our state. And that's his right. He can participate just like anybody else. But it makes the claim that the party is, completely open to primaries, they're completely neutral in primaries, it makes it ring a bit hollow when the chairman is receiving this money from this donor who has an interest in keeping things a certain way. He's giving money to Tom Luna and the Republican Party. He's also giving money to the Democrats. And he gave money to the candidates, the moderate candidates in Bonneville County, and was upset that the Bonneville Central Committee supported the conservative candidates. And so he and Chairman Luna decided to file this lawsuit. Apparently, Mr. Vandersloot pledged money to support the lawsuit, to pay for the lawsuit. Now, both he and Tom Luna have pointed out that there's no money that's actually changed hands. So, technically he did not pay for the lawsuit, but apparently there has been promises made. That's what I've been told. And that seems a little wrong to me, that you have a powerful donor who already gives money to certain candidates in the primary, is working with the chairman of the party to sue the county committee that supported the other candidates. It was, this really was the topic of the convention last week. Everybody from Bonneville County was wearing T-shirts with various slogans and sayings on it about, saying Tom Luna sued me, or will Tom Luna sue you next, or Tom Luna sues volunteers. So this decision to file this lawsuit, at the time, perhaps he thought it was the right thing to do because he wanted to get an injunction to prevent them from sending out these flyers that recommended certain candidates 3 days before the primary. I get where he's coming from, but it was, he really shot himself in the foot because it just united his whole opposition against him. Bonneville County obviously was not happy with him, and other counties that believe that they have the right to recommend candidates in the primary, such as Kootenai County, they united and they were almost entirely voting together against the chairman. I think he is a good guy. However, he lost sight of some things, and I've been pondering this. I'll probably write about it or talk about it in a podcast at some point. I'm wondering how much proximity to power affects your judgment and affects your worldview. Because I'm told that Tom Luna used to be ultra conservative, but he's been in Boise in power for a long time, and you see that with other people. Brad Little, Scott Bedke, Chuck Winder, the most powerful men in our government. They spend so much time in Boise that I wonder how much they understand what is going on outside of the power structure. They're surrounded at all times by other legislators or government officials, the bureaucrats in the government, the big lobbyists and CEOs and rich donors, and that becomes their world. Sure, they might come out and do town meetings or meet and greets with people, but I wonder how much they really listen to what is going on outside of their circle, outside of their bubble. Anyway, that's just something I'm pondering. I haven't really come to a conclusion on that yet, but I'll keep thinking about it and keep tossing it out there in discussion to see what other people think. I really appreciate all the various groups I'm in, the Telegram groups and Discord groups and Facebook groups and Twitter conversations, because it really gives me a chance to throw these ideas out there, bounce them off different people, see what comes back, and really formulate some perspectives. In any case, the convention was a lot of fun. Like I said, the best part of it was meeting all these people that I hadn't met in person yet. Spending time with them, watching them sing karaoke. It was a lot of fun. And it struck me as I watched. I was there as a delegate for Ada County, and Senator Chuck Winder was there as a delegate from Ada County. Now, on normal days like today, he's a lot more powerful than I am. Obviously, he's the Senate pro tem. He's been in office for 10 years. He has networks of powerful donors and lobbyists and people who can make things happen. But on that convention floor, as we're voting, we have the exact same power. We each have one vote. He cast his vote for the chair. I cast my vote for the chair. He stood up to vote for a measure. I stood up to vote for a measure. And so the greatest part of the convention was the equalization of power. This is an organization of all the Republican delegates in the state, and it doesn't matter if you're the Speaker of the House or the pro tem of the Senate or just some guy who applied to be a delegate. You both have the same amount of power, and that was fun. That was really. It felt really empowering to be able to have that voice. It was a lot of fun being able to get up and give the nomination speech for Steve Bender, and I'm honored that he asked me to do that. If you'd told me 10 years ago that I would have gotten up in front of the state convention with 1,000 people in the room, delegates and senators and representatives and members of the media, and given a speech, I would have thought you were crazy. But here I am. It's been an interesting path, and it's been a lot of fun. Now, talking about the orbit of power, these people, Governor Little, Senator Winder, Speaker Bedke, their power rests on this foundation. Now, part of it is in their networks that they build over the years. And that's when I say establishment, that's what I mean. It's this system that they come up in where they build networks, they build connections with lobbyists and bureaucrats and other lawmakers, and they come up through that system. But their power also rests on a foundation of the party. And that party is made up of us. It's made up of PCs, of delegates, of just people who are involved, just regular folks. And I did get the impression that some of our more powerful leaders consider the convention and the platform to be a sideshow. And now that it's done, now that they've placated the masses, they'll go back to crafting real legislation and real power. But at the same time, this is still their foundation. We changed the leadership of the party. We completely wiped out the existing slate of officers. Every incumbent was voted out, and that's going to change the direction of the party. And so we're nudging it. We're nudging it one step at a time, and that's going to have an effect on our leaders. And when Governor Little comes to meet with the chairman of the party, it's not going to be with Tom Luna, who is basically on the same page with him. It's going to be with Dorothy Moon, who has a lot different ideas. And out of those conversations, out of those meetings, is going to come a different synthesis than would have previously. And so that's how we accomplish change. I've written a lot about how politics in America is built from the ground up. The presidential elections and the stuff in Washington, D.C. is always going to dominate the news. But real political change begins at the local level. It begins at your city council, your school board, your library board, your county commission, your state party convention. Now, I know a lot of people who are frustrated with the Republican Party, and they want to join a third party like the Libertarians, or here in Idaho we have the Constitution Party, or they just want to go independent, as Ammon Bundy is doing. And that's fine, but I think that the best avenue for change is within the existing power structure. because the Republican Party has name recognition. Everybody knows who we are. It has lists of voters. It has people who donate money. It has influence. The Libertarian Party, a lot of good folks there, but they don't have any influence. They don't have any power to move things. Whereas in the Republican Party, we do. And it starts by showing up as a PC, showing up as a delegate. And I think we're going to start seeing some of the fruits of that influence. We're going to start seeing things being nudged to the right. Perhaps it's not happening as fast as a lot of us would like, but it is happening. We've got to think in the long term. What are we doing now to make life better for our children and our grandchildren? And no one thing we do is going to fix everything, but a lot of little things that we can do will add up to progress in the direction we want it to go. So that's about all I had for you today. I've talked for over half an hour, so I appreciate those who are listening now and who will be listening later when this is posted. I will get it posted as soon as possible, both audio and video. But it was an exciting time. I urge everybody to get involved. I'd like to see even more new faces at the convention in 2024, wherever that ends up being. It will be in a presidential election year, so those conventions are always really exciting. But for now, we'll get back to work and do what we can to move things. I'll have some new posts at GemState. Follow me there, gemstate.substack.com. Follow me on Twitter at GemStateBrian. Find me on Telegram at Brian Almon Official. And if you find me at any one place, you can find me at the others too. So I appreciate all your support. I appreciate your subscriptions and your shares and your views and your feedback, especially telling me whether I get it right or wrong. I appreciate the synthesis of ideas that comes from putting my thoughts out there in the conversation. So thank you so much, and I will talk to you again later. Have a great week, and God